I'm staying at my cousin's place right now. Been here 3 weeks. I left my house, and honestly, I don't know if I can ever go back. Most people think I've lost it. They think the isolation got to me, that living alone in the woods for too long messed with my head. Some have been kind enough not to say it to my face, but I can see it in their eyes. The doubt, the concern, the pity. But I know what I saw. I know what I experienced, and every single bit of it was real. I'd been living in that house for over 15 years. Small place, cabin style, maybe 1,200 square feet. It was tucked right up against the edge of dense forest in the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by old growth trees that had been there for centuries. Nearest neighbor was about 2 miles down the road, and even they were tucked away where you couldn't see their place from mine. That's how I liked it. That's why I bought the property in the first place. I loved everything about it. The quiet mornings with nothing but birdsong, the peace of sitting on my porch with coffee watching deer move through the clearing, being surrounded by nothing but trees and wildlife and clean air, no traffic noise, no sirens, no neighbors blasting music or having loud arguments, just me and nature. For 15 years, it was absolutely perfect, my slice of heaven on earth. Then about 8 months ago, everything changed. Everything. At first, it was little things I tried real hard to brush off and ignore. I started noticing footprints in the mud near the tree line. They'd appear after rain, pressed deep into the soft earth. Way too big to be human. I'm talking massive prints, easily twice the size of my own boot, maybe even bigger. My foot is a size 8, and these prints had to be 16, 17 inches long. Maybe more. The stride between them was enormous too, like whatever made them took steps 3 or 4 feet apart without even trying. They didn't match any animal I knew either. Not bear, not elk, not moose, nothing I'd ever seen in all my years living out there. Bear prints have visible claw marks way out in front of the pad. These didn't. They looked almost human, but scaled up to an impossible size. 5 toes, a heel, an arch, but huge, impossibly huge. And they kept appearing in the same exact spots, day after day, week after week. Like whatever was making them had regular routes around my property, patrol routes. That's what they reminded me of. Like something was systematically circling my land on a schedule. I'd find them near my shed, along the edge of my garden, by the woodpile, always the same locations, always the same enormous size. Then came the sounds at night, sounds I'd never heard before in all my years living there. And I'd heard plenty of wildlife. Coyotes howling, owls hooting, elk bugling during rut season, even mountain lions screaming, which is absolutely terrifying if you've never heard it before. But these sounds were different, completely different. Deep grunting noises that echoed through the trees. This weird knocking sound, like someone hitting wood against wood with incredible force, coming from different directions in the forest. Loud enough to carry for miles, and heavy footsteps, really heavy. The kind of footsteps that make you think something massive is circling your house, deliberately, slowly, taking its time. I tried telling myself it was just wildlife passing through. Elk, maybe. They get pretty big. Or bears. We had black bears in the area. Sometimes grizzlies would wander down from further north. But deep down, I knew the sounds were different from anything I'd heard before. They had this purposeful quality to them. Not random animal noises, something organized, intentional, like communication. The footprints kept showing up in the exact same places day after day. The sounds kept happening at night, usually between midnight and 4 in the morning. The wood knocking would start around 2 a.m. sometimes and go on for an hour. I'd lie awake in bed listening to it echo through the forest, trying to count how many different locations it was coming from. Sometimes it sounded like 3 or 4 distinct sources, all answering each other. Knock, knock, knock from the northwest. Then knock, knock from the east. Then knock from the south, like they were coordinating, letting each other know where they were, what they were doing. This went on for maybe 6 weeks before I saw one. 6 weeks of footprints and sounds and this growing sense of unease that I couldn't shake. 6 weeks of telling myself I was being paranoid, that there was a rational explanation for all of it. Then one evening, everything changed. I was out by my shed bringing in firewood before dark. It was early October, getting cold at night, and I'd been putting off stocking up the wood by the door. It was dusk, maybe 6:30 or 7, that weird time when the light is fading but it's not fully dark yet, when shadows get long and everything looks a bit off. I grabbed an armful of split logs from the pile, probably 8 or 9 pieces, and when I turned around to head back to the house, I looked up and froze. There was something standing at the edge of the clearing, maybe 60 or 70 feet away, right where the lawn met the tree line, just standing there, watching me. It was massive, had to be 7 or 8 feet tall, maybe taller, covered in dark hair, almost black in the fading light. The shape was humanoid, but the proportions were all wrong. Shoulders too broad like a bodybuilder but wider, arms too long, hanging down past where human arms would end, almost to his knees. Legs thick and powerful looking. The head seemed small for the body size, or maybe it just didn't have much neck, hard to tell in the dim light. It wasn't moving. Just standing there perfectly still, staring at me. I stood there holding that armload of firewood, completely locked in place, unable to move or think or do anything. My brain was trying to process what I was seeing, trying to make it make sense. That's a person in a costume. That's a bear standing up. That's a shadow. That's a tree stump I'm seeing wrong. That's anything except what it actually was. We stared at each other for what felt like forever. In reality, it was probably only 30 seconds, maybe 45, but it felt like time had stopped. Then it moved, took one step backward, then another, backing into the trees without turning around, just stepping backward while still watching me. Then it was gone, disappeared into the shadows between the trees like it had never been there. I dropped the firewood. Every log hit the ground with a clatter. I ran inside and locked the door, locked the windows, checked every lock twice. Sat in my living room with my heart pounding like it was going to explode out of my chest, trying to convince myself I had imagined it. Trick of the light, shadows playing games, my mind filling in details that weren't there. My imagination running wild because I've been hearing weird sounds for weeks, but I knew what I'd seen. I knew it was real. And that terrified me more than anything. Over the next few weeks, the sightings became more frequent. I saw them during the day now, not just at dusk. Once I saw 2 of them moving through the trees about 50 yards from my back porch. It was mid-morning, bright sunshine, no way to blame it on shadows or lighting. One was noticeably larger than the other. The bigger one had to be 8 feet tall easily, maybe pushing 8.5 or 9, dark brown fur covering its entire body. The smaller one looked maybe 7 feet, lighter colored fur, almost reddish brown. The smaller one seemed to be following the larger one. They moved with purpose, not like animals wandering around randomly looking for food. They knew where they were going. They were headed somewhere specific. I watched them move through the trees for maybe 2 minutes before they disappeared deeper into the forest. The way they moved was fluid, graceful almost. They didn't stumble or push through underbrush. They knew the terrain. They'd been there before, many times. I started finding other evidence all around my property. Branches twisted and bent and arranged in weird patterns hanging from trees about 6 or 7 feet up. Stacks of rocks that definitely weren't there before. piled up in little cairns near the tree line, large areas of flattened grass where something massive had been lying down, with an indentation that had to be 8 feet long and 3 feet wide. Whatever had made it was huge and had spent time there, not just passed through. The wood knocking became almost nightly, usually starting around midnight or 1 a.m. and continuing until 3 or 4 in the morning. Sometimes I'd hear it from one direction, and then another knock would answer from somewhere completely different in the forest, northwest to southeast, east to southwest, like they were surrounding the property in a wide circle, letting each other know their positions, communicating, coordinating, planning. I felt like they were surrounding my property, marking it as their territory, making it clear that I was the intruder, not them. They'd been here first, long before I bought the land and built my house. They'd been here for decades, maybe centuries, and they weren't happy about me being there. The worst part was the feeling of being watched, constant, oppressive, unrelenting, even during the day, especially during the day. I'd be doing dishes and get that crawling sensation on the back of my neck, that primal instinct that tells you you're being observed. I'd spin around fast and look out the kitchen window, and sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of something large ducking behind a tree. Just a flash of movement, there and gone, but enough to know I wasn't imagining it. Couldn't work in my garden anymore without that oppressive feeling bearing down on me from the tree line. Couldn't take out the trash without checking the woods first. Couldn't even sit on my own porch and enjoy my coffee without scanning the clearing every few seconds, watching for movement. I felt like prey, like something was studying me, learning my routines, my schedule. When I went outside, when I stayed in, what I did, and when I did it, my dog started acting strange too. She was a German Shepherd mix, pretty fearless normally, would bark at delivery drivers, would chase off deer, would stand her ground with coyotes if they got too close to the property. But now she'd growl at the windows for no apparent reason, the fur on her back standing straight up. She refused to go outside after dark. At night, she'd whine and pace back and forth in front of the door, clearly anxious, clearly sensing something I couldn't see. Animals know things. They pick up on stuff we miss. She knew something was wrong before I fully accepted it. I finally broke down and called the sheriff's department. Took me a while to work up to it because I knew exactly how it was going to sound. But things were escalating and I needed help. Or at least I needed someone official to document what was happening. So I called, and I was very careful about what I said. Told the dispatcher I had large animals or possibly people trespassing on my property. Said I'd found footprints and heard sounds at night. Kept it vague. Didn't mention what I thought they were. Didn't mention 7-foot-tall, hair-covered humanoids. I knew exactly how that would sound. A deputy showed up the next afternoon. Young guy, probably mid-20s at most. Clean uniform, polished boots, the look of someone who hadn't been doing the job very long. He seemed annoyed to be driving all the way out there. I live 45 minutes from town on roads that were barely maintained. I'm sure he had better things to do. He walked around my property for maybe 20 minutes, looked at some of the footprints near my shed, took a couple photos with his phone, examined the twisted branches hanging from trees. Then he came back to where I was standing on the porch and told me it was probably just a black bear, maybe a mother with cubs, he said. He said bears get territorial sometimes, especially mothers protecting cubs. He advised me to secure my trash cans, make noise when I go outside, bang pots and pans together, and the bear would move on. Find somewhere else to be. I tried to explain these weren't bear prints. Bear prints look different. These were clearly not from a bear. They had 5 toes like a human foot, not bear pads and claws. He cut me off before I could finish, said he'd try to drive by more often on patrol, keep an eye on things. Then he got in his car and left. I never saw him again, never saw any patrol car drive by, nothing. That's when I realized I needed proof, hard evidence. I needed to document what was happening in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I needed something concrete. So I drove into town to the outdoor supply store about a week later. There was a teenage kid working there, maybe 17 or 18. He was showing me the basic trail camera models, the cheap ones that hunters use for checking deer patterns. They cost maybe $50. While he was talking about megapixels and battery life, the owner came over. Older guy, probably in his mid-60s. Weathered face, gray hair, the look of someone who'd lived in the area his whole life and had seen things. You could tell by the way he carried himself, the way he looked at you. He helped me pick out better cameras, good quality ones with proper night vision and motion sensors that wouldn't drain the batteries in a week. Weatherproof housing, high resolution, memory cards that could hold thousands of photos, told me which mounting straps worked best, which angles to set them at. We spent maybe 20 minutes going through options. As I was checking out, he leaned in close over the counter and asked quietly what I was trying to catch on camera. Not in a mocking way, in a serious way, like he genuinely wanted to know. When I hesitated, not sure how to answer, he said he had a pretty good idea based on where I lived. Said he knew the area, knew the woods up there. Then he told me he knew what was in those forests. Said he'd had his own experiences years back. Didn't elaborate, didn't tell me details, just let that statement hang there. Then he warned me. His exact words were, "Putting up cameras is a bad idea. They know what cameras are for. They've learned. They don't appreciate being filmed. Trust me on this." His tone was dead serious, almost pleading, like he was trying to protect me from making a mistake, from doing something I'd regret. I thanked him for the warning. I appreciated it, but I bought the cameras anyway, all 3 of them, plus mounting equipment, plus extra batteries and memory cards. I needed proof. I needed documentation. I needed something I could show people that would make them believe me, make them take this seriously. Because without proof, I was just the crazy lady living alone in the woods who was seeing things that weren't there. The store owner insisted on coming out to help me install them properly. He showed up the next morning around 9 a.m. in an old pickup truck, brought all the mounting equipment, ladder, tools. We spent 2 hours placing cameras at strategic points around my property, facing the main tree line where I'd seen the most activity, the approaches to the house from different directions, the areas where footprints appeared most frequently. He showed me how to check the SD cards without disturbing the camera positioning, how to adjust the sensitivity settings so they wouldn't trigger on every leaf that blew past but would definitely catch anything large moving through the frame, how to angle them slightly down so we'd get good, clear shots of anything approaching instead of just treetops. He knew what he was doing. This wasn't his first time setting up trail cameras. Before he left, he looked at me with a serious expression, hands on his hips, and said, "Don't say I didn't warn you. What happens next is on you." Then he got in his truck and drove away. I watched him disappear down the long driveway, dust kicking up behind his tires, and wondered what exactly he meant by that. What did he think was going to happen? That night, I barely slept. Kept wondering if the cameras would actually capture anything. Kept listening for sounds outside. The wood knocking started around 1 a.m., louder than usual, more insistent. Multiple sources surrounding the property in a wide circle. They kept at it for almost 2 hours straight. My dog was going crazy, pacing and whining, clearly agitated. I sat in my living room with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, lights off, just waiting for dawn. At first light, maybe 5:30 in the morning, I was outside pulling the SD cards from the cameras. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped one. Had to take a deep breath and steady myself. I brought them inside, loaded them onto my laptop one by one, and started reviewing the files. The first camera, the one facing the main tree line about 50 feet from the house, had captured something at 2:47 in the morning. The timestamp was clear in the corner of the frame, multiple figures approaching the house through the clearing, coming out of the forest in a group. My breath caught in my throat. My heart started pounding. I could feel my pulse in my temples. They were massive, had to be 7 or 8 feet tall, maybe taller. It was hard to judge exactly because there was nothing in the frame to compare them to directly, but they dwarfed the trees behind them. Broad shoulders, probably 3 feet across from shoulder to shoulder. Long arms that hung down past where human arms would end, swinging slightly as they walked, almost reaching their knees. They were covered in hair from head to toe, shaggy and thick. Most of them were dark-colored, almost black in the infrared light. But one of them appeared lighter, almost grayish-white, or maybe silver. Stood out clearly from the others. They were moving upright on 2 legs, completely humanoid in shape and posture. But the way they moved was different from humans, smoother somehow, more fluid, more powerful. Each step looked effortless, like they could move like that for hours without getting tired. They walked in a loose group formation, spread out about 10 feet apart from each other, moving in the same direction with clear purpose. The second camera, mounted closer to the house, caught them even nearer, maybe 30 feet from my bedroom window. One of them was staring directly at the camera lens. It had stopped walking and was just standing there, perfectly still, looking right at the camera, like it knew what it was, like it understood. I could see its face in the infrared night vision. Heavy brow ridge, much more pronounced than humans. Flat nose, broad and wide. Something primitive about the features, something ancient and unsettling. The shape of the skull was different too, more conical, rising to almost a point at the top. Its eyes reflected the infrared light back at the camera, gave them this almost glowing appearance. Like cat eyes at night, but bigger, set wider apart. The expression on its face was hard to read. Not angry, not afraid, just watchful, studying. Like it was analyzing the camera, trying to figure out what it was and what it meant. The third camera showed them at the tree line, 3 of them standing together in a tight group like they were having a discussion. The largest one was in front, had to be 8.5 or 9 feet tall from what I could estimate. The other 2 were slightly behind it, positioned like they were deferring to it, like it was in charge, a leader. The formation was deliberate, organized, not random. I watched the footage over and over, paused it, zoomed in as much as the image quality would allow without getting too pixelated, studied their faces, their posture, their proportions. I felt physically sick. My stomach was churning. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. This was real. This was actually happening. And now I had proof, undeniable proof, multiple angles, timestamps, clear images. But proof of what exactly? That there were multiple massive creatures living in the forest around my house? That they came to my property every night in groups? That they were watching me? Who would believe this? The police hadn't believed me about footprints and sounds. Would they believe camera footage? Or would they say it was faked? Photoshopped, some kind of elaborate hoax? I decided to leave the cameras up for another night, see what else I could capture. More footage would be better, more evidence. Maybe I'd catch them in daylight. Maybe I'd get even clearer images. That decision was a mistake, the biggest mistake I could have made. That night around 3 a.m, I heard crashing sounds outside. Loud banging like metal being hit with tremendous force. Wood splintering and cracking, something being torn apart deliberately and violently. My dog went absolutely insane. Barking non-stop, running from window to window, fur standing straight up all along her back, teeth bared. I'd never seen her like that. She was terrified. I grabbed my rifle from the closet, an old hunting rifle my father had given me years ago. I'd only ever used it for target practice, never actually hunted with it. Sat on my bed with it across my lap, safety off, finger near the trigger. Too terrified to look outside, too scared to open the curtains and see what was making those sounds. The crashing and banging continued for maybe 10 minutes. Could have been longer. Time felt distorted, stretched out, deliberate destruction, systematic. Then suddenly, silence, complete silence. No crickets, no night birds, nothing. I didn't move until dawn, just sat there rigid, barely breathing, listening to the silence, rifle ready, waiting for sunrise. My dog eventually calmed down and curled up at my feet, but she was still shaking. When the sun finally came up and light started filtering through the curtains, I forced myself to get up and go outside. Had to see what had happened, had to check the damage. All 3 cameras had been completely destroyed, not just knocked down or damaged, completely obliterated. Torn from the trees where they had been mounted, smashed on the ground, pieces scattered everywhere across probably 15 feet in each direction. Camera housings cracked open, lenses shattered, circuit boards exposed and bent. The mounting brackets had been ripped apart, metal twisted and broken. But here's the thing that really got to me. Only the cameras were touched. The mounting brackets were mangled, sure, but the trees they'd been attached to were fine. No claw marks, no bark stripped away. The straps were cut clean, not torn. They'd specifically targeted the cameras themselves with surgical precision. They knew exactly what those devices were, and they wanted them gone. The message was absolutely crystal clear. I found massive handprints in the soft dirt near one camera location. The morning dew had settled on them, making them stand out clearly. The prints were huge. Each finger impression was as thick as a broom handle, maybe thicker. The span of the hand from thumb to pinky had to be 14 or 15 inches, maybe more. The depth of the impression told me they'd been pressed down with significant force. Whatever made these prints was incredibly strong. There were several prints overlapping in places, like multiple individuals had been there examining the camera before destroying it. I took photos of them with my phone, trying to capture the scale, but phone photos never really do justice to seeing something in person. The detail was incredible. You could see the texture of the palm, individual finger pads, the impression where the wrist had pressed into the ground. After the cameras were destroyed, things got significantly worse. Much worse. They started coming closer to the house, bolder in their approaches, more aggressive in their behavior. Like destroying the cameras had been some kind of turning point, like they'd issued a warning and now they were following through. I'd hear heavy footsteps on my porch at night, loud, distinct, deliberate, wood creaking under immense weight, scratching sounds on the walls like something with thick nails or claws dragging them down the siding, long, slow scrapes that would go on for minutes, banging on the doors, not random bumps or impacts. Deliberate, rhythmic pounding that would go on for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. Boom, 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 like they were testing the door's strength, seeing if it would break, trying to get in. One night, something hit my bedroom window so hard I thought the glass would shatter. The entire frame shook. The wall rattled. I screamed, couldn't help it. When I turned on the porch light, hands shaking so bad I could barely find the switch, I saw massive shapes retreating into the darkness. Multiple figures moving away from the house, disappearing into the tree line. They'd been right there, right outside my window, close enough to touch the glass. There was also this smell, a horrible, overwhelming, musky odor that would hang around my property, especially at night. It was nauseating. Like wet dog mixed with something wild and rotten and organic. like a mixture of sweat and decay and animal musk all combined into one concentrated stench. It would make me gag, make my eyes water. The smell would linger for hours after they'd been near the house. Would seep in through closed windows, would cling to my clothes. I couldn't get away from it. My dog refused to go outside after dark anymore. Absolutely refused. I'd open the door at night to let her out to do her business, and she'd plant her feet, dig in, pull backward on the leash with all her strength. She'd rather hold it all night than go out there. During the day, she was fine, would go out without hesitation, but once the sun set, she wouldn't go near the door. She'd cower behind the couch, shaking, whining softly. She knew something I couldn't see, could sense something I couldn't perceive. I started sleeping in my clothes, jeans and a sweatshirt and boots. Kept my boots right by the bed, laced loose so I could jam my feet in fast if I needed to run. Rifle propped against the nightstand, loaded, safety on but within easy reach. I stopped sleeping more than 2 or 3 hours a night. Would jolt awake at every sound, heart racing, convinced they were trying to get in. Stopped opening my curtains during the day. Couldn't stand the idea of them watching me through the windows. But I knew they were out there even when I couldn't hear them, could feel their presence. That constant sensation of being observed, that primal awareness that you're not alone, that something is paying very close attention to you. It never went away. Even in my own home, I felt exposed, vulnerable, like prey being stalked by predators who were just waiting for the right moment. During one particularly intense episode, maybe 2 weeks after the cameras were destroyed, something pounded on my back door for nearly 20 minutes straight. It started around midnight. Boom, 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 rhythmic, powerful. The whole door was shaking in its frame. The metal hinges were rattling. I thought the door would break. Thought they'd smash right through. I called 911, grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed. Begged the dispatcher to send someone. Told her I had intruders trying to break into my house. She sounded skeptical. I could hear it in her voice, but she agreed to send a deputy. Told me to stay inside with the doors locked. Stay calm. Keep away from windows. Officer was on the way. ETA 30 to 40 minutes, because I live so far from town. By the time the deputy finally arrived 45 minutes later, everything had gone completely quiet. The pounding had stopped maybe 10 minutes after I made the call, like they knew help was coming, like they could sense it somehow. The deputy was the same young guy who'd come out before. He searched around with his flashlight, shining it into the woods, checking the doors and windows. Didn't find anything, no evidence of anyone being there. I tried showing him the destroyed cameras that were still lying where they'd fallen weeks before. The footprints, but it had rained a few times since then, and the evidence wasn't as clear as it had been. The prints were washed out, filled with water. The camera pieces had been sitting in weather, getting rained on and snowed on. They just looked like trash now. Generic broken plastic and metal. I could tell by his face he thought I was overreacting, imagining things, being paranoid, maybe even mentally unstable. As he was walking back to his patrol car, I heard him talking on his radio, heard it clearly through the open window. Welfare check on Forest Road. Resident seems anxious, but no sign of intruders, no evidence of forced entry. Possible mental health situation. Recommend follow-up. I felt my face burn with humiliation, felt tears sting my eyes. He thought I was crazy, making things up, having delusions, living alone too long, and losing my grip on reality. I called the sheriff's office 2 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time the activity would mysteriously stop before officers arrived, like clockwork. I'd call, they'd dispatch someone, and by the time the deputy showed up, everything would be quiet and calm. No sounds, no evidence. Just me standing there trying to explain what had been happening minutes before, sounding more unhinged each time. I started hearing the responding deputies' attitudes change with each visit. Could hear it in their voices, less concerned, more dismissive, more impatient. Speaking to me slower, using simpler words, like they were talking to someone confused or impaired. One deputy actually asked me directly if I'd been drinking when I called about figures in my yard, asked if I was on any medications that might cause confusion or hallucinations. I tried to stay calm, tried to explain rationally what was happening, but I could tell he had already made up his mind about me before he even arrived. I was the crazy lady who lived alone in the woods and called the cops about imaginary monsters. That's how they saw me. That's how everyone saw me. I called the state wildlife office, talked to some biologist or ranger or whatever his title was, explained I had large unidentified animals on my property, possibly dangerous. He told me to contact local law enforcement. When I explained I already had and they weren't taking it seriously, he said there wasn't anything else he could do. Recommended I call animal control. When I pointed out we didn't have animal control in our county, he wished me luck and ended the call. I tried calling a local news station, thought maybe they'd be interested in the story, strange activity in the woods, unexplained sounds and sightings, even sent them some of the photos from the trail cameras before they were destroyed. Never got a call back. Nothing. Complete silence. When I went into town for supplies, I started hearing whispers, started noticing the looks. The woman at the post office, who'd always been friendly before, gave me this pitying look when I came in. Said she'd heard about all the trouble I've been having. Said it in that tone people use when they're talking to someone they think is mentally ill. Sympathetic but distant. Understanding but condescending. At the grocery store, two women were talking in the produce section. They stopped mid-conversation when I walked down their aisle, went completely silent. I heard one of them whisper, "That's her," as I passed. The crazy lady. The one who keeps calling the cops. The one who's seeing things. That's what they were saying. I knew it. A guy at the gas station actually made a joke about it. Asked if I'd seen any monsters lately and then laughed. Like it was funny. Like my terror was entertainment. I paid for my gas without saying anything and left. I realized then that the whole small town thought I'd lost my mind. The crazy old lady who keeps calling the cops about monsters in the woods. That's who I was to them now. That was my identity. I stopped going into town unless absolutely necessary. Only went for food and supplies I couldn't do without. Stopped calling for help. Stopped trying to get anyone to believe me or take me seriously. Knew no one would. Knew I was completely on my own. It was just me against whatever was out there in those woods. Me and my dog and my rifle and my terror. The next few weeks were a living nightmare that got progressively worse. Activity continued almost every single night. Sometimes during the day too, which was new. They were getting bolder, more confident, more aggressive in asserting their control over the property. I'd see them at the tree line when I looked out my windows during daylight hours. Multiple figures, always at least 2 or 3, just standing there among the trees, perfectly still watching the house. Always watching. They seemed to be testing me, seeing how I'd react to each new provocation, how much I could take before I broke. They started breaking things around my property. Systematic destruction. My garden shed door was smashed completely off its hinges one morning, just torn off and thrown 20 feet away into the yard. The metal hinges were still attached to the door, bent and twisted. The screws had been ripped right out of the wood frame. My bird feeders, 3 of them hanging from metal shepherd's hooks, were torn down and destroyed. The metal poles were bent at 90-degree angles, twisted like they were made of wire instead of half-inch steel. The feeders themselves were smashed to pieces, seeds scattered everywhere. They'd done it deliberately, with excessive force, sending a message. My woodpile, which I'd spent days stacking neatly against the side of the house, was knocked over. Logs scattered everywhere across probably 30 feet. Some of them were thrown so far they landed in my garden, crushing plants. It would have taken me hours to restack it all. I didn't bother. What was the point? They'd just knock it over again. One morning I found my trash cans had been dumped out in the driveway, but the contents weren't just scattered randomly like when raccoons or bears get into garbage. They were almost organized, sorted into piles. Plastic in one area, food waste in another, cardboard and paper in a third pile. Like something with intelligence had gone through it methodically, looking for specific items. Looking for something. I have no idea what. The wood knocking became constant, not just at night anymore, sometimes during broad daylight, usually in the afternoon between 2 and 4 p.m. Multiple sources surrounding the property in a wide circle, all responding to each other. Knock, knock, knock from the northwest, knock, knock from the east, knock from the south, knock, knock, knock from directly behind the house. Sometimes it would go on for an hour straight. The most disturbing thing I found were handprints on my windows. Massive hand impressions pressed against the glass from outside, visible in the condensation and dust. Multiple prints overlapping on different windows around the house. Bedroom window, kitchen window, living room. They'd been standing right there while I slept, just inches away, separated only by a thin pane of glass, watching me, studying me. The thought made my skin crawl, made me feel violated in a way I'd never experienced before. I measured one of the handprints carefully, finger to finger, thumb to pinky. The span was 16 inches. The palm impression was 8 inches wide and about 9 inches tall. The fingers were thick, much thicker than human fingers, maybe 2 inches wide each. Whatever made these prints was enormous and powerful beyond comprehension. Things came to a head about 3 weeks ago, right before I finally left. I was woken up around 2 a.m. by the loudest banging I'd ever heard. Something was hitting the side of my house with tremendous, terrifying force. Not just banging, but impact. Like someone swinging a battering ram, or like something incredibly strong hitting the wall with its fists, over and over and over. The entire house was shaking. I'm not exaggerating. The whole structure was vibrating with each impact. Pictures fell off the walls, frames shattering on the floor, dishes rattled in the cabinets, a glass fell out of the cupboard and broke. The hanging light in the living room was swinging back and forth. Dust was falling from the ceiling. I genuinely thought the walls would cave in, thought they'd break right through and get inside. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't dial, kept hitting the wrong numbers, dropped the phone, picked it up, tried again. Finally got through to dispatch, but I was so panicked I could barely speak. Just kept saying, "They're trying to get in, they're going to break through, please send someone right now," over and over, while the dispatcher tried to calm me down and get my address. The banging continued for what felt like forever. Boom, boom, boom. Rhythmic, powerful, relentless. My dog was screaming, actually screaming like a person, not barking. I'd never heard her make sounds like that before. High-pitched, terrified, completely panic-stricken. She was running from room to room, trying to find somewhere safe, somewhere to hide. There was nowhere safe. The whole house was under attack. It lasted for maybe 10 minutes, but felt like hours. Time was distorted, each second stretched out. Then suddenly, abruptly, silence. Complete silence. Like a switch had been flipped. The banging stopped. No retreating footsteps, no sounds of movement, just instant quiet that somehow felt even more terrifying than the noise. I sat in my locked bedroom with the rifle, finger on the trigger, safety off, pointed at the door. Didn't move, barely breathed. My dog eventually calmed down enough to stop screaming and curled up at my feet, but she was still shaking violently, her whole body trembling. I could feel her shaking through the floor. We stayed like that until sunrise. Neither of us moved. Neither of us slept. When the sun finally came up and light started filtering through the curtains around 6 a.m., I forced myself to get up. Hands still shaking, legs weak, had to see what had happened, had to check the damage, had to know how bad it was. They'd torn off several pieces of my siding, 4 or 5 sections, each about 4 feet long, just ripped right off the side of the house. The exposed wood underneath was splintered and cracked. They'd bent my metal porch railing like it was made of cardboard or aluminum foil. The railing was half-inch steel pipe. I know because I'd helped install it myself years ago. It was twisted and bent in multiple places, pulled away from its mounting brackets. 2 more windows were shattered, glass everywhere in the flower beds below. The frames were damaged too, wood splintered around the edges. One window looked like something had punched straight through it. There was a clear impact point in the center with cracks radiating out. There were huge footprints everywhere, absolutely everywhere. In the flower beds, in the dirt around the foundation, on the wooden deck, at least 5 different sets, maybe more. Impossible to count because they overlap so much. Different sizes too. The largest ones had to be 18 inches long. The smallest were maybe 14 inches. Men, women, juveniles. A whole group, maybe a whole family. Some of the prints were right up against my house, right under my bedroom window where I'd been sitting with the rifle. They'd been inches away from me, separated only by the wall and glass. Close enough that I could have reached out and touched them if the window had been open. That realization hit me hard, made my knees weak. I had to sit down on the porch steps. That's when I knew for absolute certain I couldn't stay anymore. This wasn't going to stop. They weren't going to leave me alone. They weren't going to just go away or lose interest. This was their land, their territory. They'd been here long before me, and they wanted me gone. And they weren't going to stop until I left. One way or another. I called the sheriff's office one final time about the property damage. Took photos with my phone first, documentation for insurance. The same deputy came out, took more photos, filled out a report, asked me a lot of questions. When did this happen? Did I see anyone? Did I hear voices? Was anyone with me who could confirm the story? His questions made it clear what he was thinking. He claimed it looked like storm damage. Said we'd had some high winds recently. When I pointed out the footprints, he suggested it could be vandalism from teenagers. I almost laughed. What teenagers? We were 45 minutes from town. What teenagers would drive all the way out here in the middle of the night to bend steel railings with their bare hands? How would they even do that? With what tools? Why wouldn't I have heard them? He didn't have answers. He suggested I install security cameras. I didn't bother explaining I'd already tried that and what had happened. What was the point? He wouldn't have believed me anyway. He left after maybe 20 minutes. Said he'd include everything in his report. Said I should call my insurance company. Then he drove away and I never saw him again. I called my insurance company later that day. They sent an adjuster out 3 days later. Young woman, probably late 20s, with a clipboard and a camera. She looked at the damage, took measurements, took photos, asked questions. In the end, she ruled it undetermined cause. Said it could be weather, could be vandalism, could be several things. Insurance barely covered any of the repairs. Would have cost me thousands out of pocket to fix everything. I couldn't afford to fix everything anyway. Didn't have that kind of money saved up. And what was the point? Even if I fixed it all, they'd just destroy it again. They'd made that clear. This was a message, a warning, and I'd ignored it long enough. I called the outdoor supply store owner, the one who'd warned me about the cameras, the one who'd said he knew what was in those woods. I told him everything that had happened, all of it. The sightings, the cameras, the escalating aggression, the damage. He listened without interrupting, didn't ask any questions, just let me talk. When I finally finished, there was a long silence on the line. Then he said quietly, in a serious tone, "I'll never forget. You need to leave. They've marked your property as theirs now. They've made their decision. They won't stop until you're gone. Trust me, I've seen this before. You need to leave while you still can." His words confirmed what I already knew in my gut, what I'd been avoiding admitting to myself. I couldn't stay. This was over. I'd lost. They'd won. The house I'd lived in for 15 years, the property I'd loved, the peace and quiet I'd valued so much, it was all gone. They'd taken it from me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I spent 3 days packing what I could fit in my car: clothes, important documents, some photos, and mementos I couldn't bear to leave behind. Had to leave most of my furniture, all my appliances, most of my possessions. Couldn't take it all. Didn't have time, didn't have space. Every night they came back, banging on the walls, howling in the forest, circling the house. Wood knocking nonstop from midnight until dawn. It felt like they knew I was leaving, like they were making sure I followed through, pushing me out, making my final nights there as unbearable as possible so I wouldn't change my mind. So I wouldn't decide to stay and fight. They were right. I wasn't going to stay, couldn't stay. It wasn't safe. It wasn't sane. I called my distant cousin. We weren't close, but we'd always gotten along. Explained I was having problems at my house and needed a place to stay for a while. Didn't go into details over the phone, just said I'd explain everything when I got there. They said yes, said I was welcome to stay as long as I needed. I was grateful, had nowhere else to go. I loaded my car with everything that mattered, essentials in the trunk and back seat. My dog in the passenger seat, still nervous, still scared, but at least she'd be safe. Whatever else would fit, left everything else behind, locked the door one final time, knowing I'd probably never unlock it again. I left just after dawn on a Wednesday morning. The sun was barely up, sky just starting to lighten from black to deep blue. I wanted to leave in darkness but couldn't bring myself to. Needed at least a little light. As I pulled out of my driveway for the last time, going slow over the ruts and potholes, I looked back in my rear-view mirror one final time. There were at least 3 of them standing at the tree line, maybe more behind them in the shadows, hard to tell. Just standing there in a row, perfectly still, watching me go. The largest one was in the middle, the other 2 flanking it. They didn't move, didn't react, just watched. I could see them clearly in my mirror, these massive dark shapes against the trees, backlit by the rising sun. I haven't been back since, haven't driven past, haven't even looked at photos of the place. Can't bring myself to. I've been at my cousin's house for 3 weeks now, still jumpy, still not sleeping well. Check every lock multiple times every night before bed, then get up in the middle of the night and check them again. Have nightmares almost every time I manage to fall asleep. Wake up thinking I hear the wood knocking, heart pounding, covered in sweat. Takes me minutes to remember where I am, to realize I'm safe, to calm down enough to breathe normally. My dog is still terrified. Won't go near windows after dark, cowers if she hears any loud noise, follows me from room to room, won't let me out of her sight. She's traumatized. We both are. I'm trying to figure out what to do about the house. Can't afford to just abandon my property permanently. It's my home. 15 years of my life, thousands of dollars invested in it, mortgage payments for years, all my equity. But I can't go back. Can't live like that. Can't spend another night there knowing they're outside, knowing they're watching, knowing they want me gone, knowing they could break through any time they decided to. I called a real estate agent about selling, had a long conversation about the property, the location, the condition. When she asked why I was selling, I didn't know what to say. How do you explain this to someone? How do you disclose this? Do I have to tell potential buyers? Is that something you're legally required to mention? That there are territorial creatures in the woods who will terrorize you until you leave? How do you even put that in a listing? The few people I've told the real story to think I've had some kind of breakdown, think I'm traumatized, think isolation got to me, think I need medication or therapy or both. My cousin has been incredibly kind about letting me stay here, hasn't pressured me to leave or question my story to my face. But I can see the doubt in their eyes, the concern, the worry. They think I'm unstable. They think I've imagined most of it, exaggerated the rest, let fear and loneliness twist my perceptions of normal wildlife into something monstrous. I've stopped trying to convince people. Stopped sharing the story except in the vaguest terms. What's the point? Without seeing it themselves, without experiencing it, they'll never believe. They'll never understand. And I don't blame them. If someone had told me this story a year ago, I wouldn't have believed it either. Would have thought they were confused or exaggerating or mentally ill. Would have suggested they talk to someone, get help, maybe take a break from living alone. But I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. I know every single detail was real. I have the photos from the cameras before they were destroyed. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I look at those images on my laptop. Those massive shapes approaching the house. Those faces staring at the camera. Those eyes reflecting the infrared light. I look at them to remind myself I'm not crazy. To prove to myself it was real. It happened, all of it. I keep asking myself questions that have no answers. Why my property specifically? Was it random, or was there something about that location that made it significant to them? What did they want? Were they trying to scare me off from the beginning? Or did something change? Did I do something that crossed a line? Was it the cameras? Was putting up the cameras the mistake that turned this from observation into confrontation? Were they trying to scare me off, or was there something else? Some other motive I can't understand? Why didn't they just leave me alone if they wanted to avoid being seen? If they wanted to stay hidden, why not just avoid my property completely? Why the deliberate contact? Why the escalating aggression? Why destroy things? Why terrorize me? What was the point? The most disturbing thought I keep coming back to is this. If they're real, if this happened to me, how many are there? How many are out there in the forests across the Pacific Northwest, across North America, across the world? Where else are they? How many people have experienced something similar and stayed silent because they're afraid of being labeled crazy? How many other encounters have happened that never get reported, never get talked about, never become public? I started researching online after I got here, spent hours reading forums, websites, accounts from other people, found stories from others all over, same descriptions, same behavior patterns. People from all over the Pacific Northwest saying the same things. Wood knocking, property marking, structures made from branches, footprints, aggressive behavior when cameras are used, escalating confrontations, people being driven from their homes. I realized I'm not alone in this experience. There are others who've been through the same thing, others who've seen what I've seen, others who've been terrorized until they left. But that doesn't make it any less terrifying, doesn't make it any easier to process, doesn't give me my home back, doesn't help me sleep at night. I don't know if I'll ever be able to return home. Part of me hopes they'll move on eventually, find somewhere else to be, let me reclaim my property. But I know the truth, they were there first, long before me. Probably long before anyone built houses in that area. They decided I had to leave and I had no choice but to comply. I couldn't fight them, couldn't reason with them, couldn't negotiate, could barely survive them. All I could do was run. I'm living with my cousin indefinitely now, trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy, some sense of safety, trying to sleep without nightmares, trying to function like a normal person, trying to figure out what comes next. But every night when the sun sets, I still find myself listening, can't help it. Still check the tree line through the windows, still listen for the wood knocking, still tense up at every sound outside, still wonder if somehow they followed me, if they know where I am, if they're out there right now watching this house the way they watched mine. My cousin's house backs up to woods too, not as dense, not as remote, but still there. Just a few 100 feet of trees separating the backyard from open forest. Sometimes at night, I think I hear it. That distinctive wood knocking echoing through the trees. That deliberate, purposeful rhythm. I tell myself it's just my imagination, just regular forest sounds, just my trauma making me hear things that aren't there. But I know better now. I know what's out there. And I know they don't want to be filmed, don't want to be proven, don't want to be documented. They want to remain hidden, remain in the realm of myth and legend and campfire stories. And they'll do whatever it takes to stay that way, whatever it takes. I think about my house sitting empty. Wonder if they go there still, wonder if they've moved into it, claimed it completely, broken in through one of the windows I left unrepaired, made it their shelter, their territory, their home now instead of mine. Sometimes I think about going back, just once, just to see, just to check on the place, grab some more of my things, take some more photos, document the damage for insurance. But I know I never will, because the most terrifying thing I learned from all of this is something I can never forget, something I think about every single day. We're not always at the top of the food chain. We like to think we are. We build our houses and our cities and our civilization, and we convince ourselves we've conquered nature, that we're in charge, that we're the dominant species, that nothing can challenge us. But there are things in the deep woods that are bigger than us, stronger than us, smarter than us in ways we don't understand. Things that have learned to stay hidden, learned to avoid our cameras and our civilization and our technology. Things that have been there longer than we have. Things that have learned to adapt and survive and remain invisible. But they're there, always watching, always waiting. And sometimes, if you get too close, if you see too much, if you document too much, if you try too hard to prove they exist, they make sure you leave. They make sure you're driven out. They make sure you never come back. One way or another, they make sure of it. That's what happened to me, and it could happen to anyone else who gets too close, who sees too much, who refuses to leave when they're warned, who doesn't take the hint when the signs appear, who doesn't understand that some places belong to them, not us. Some territories are theirs to claim, and if we're smart, we'll respect that. We'll leave when they tell us to. We'll go quietly before something worse happens, before they decide we need a more forceful message. I left, I ran, I gave up my home without a fight. And I'm still here, still alive, still in one piece, still able to tell the story. That's more than some people can say. That's more than might have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd refused to leave, if I'd tried to fight back, if I'd tried to prove myself right and everyone else wrong. So I'm here now, safe for the moment, trying to move forward, trying to rebuild, trying to figure out what comes next. But I'll never forget. I'll never stop looking over my shoulder. I'll never stop listening for the wood knocking. And I'll never go back to those woods, never go back to that house, never return to that property. Because I know what's out there now. I know they're real. I know they're watching, and I know they don't want us there. In their woods, in their territory, in their world. And when they decide you need to leave, you leave, or something very bad happens, one way or another. For more interesting stories, check this out.